So I thought that I would make a video that teach people how to play Hasbro's popular board game Monopoly. For those who don't know how to play it or have probably never heard of it because they're so young, or yeah, that's basically it. That's basically the target audience for this video. So, setup is fairly simple. You take the token that you want to represent yourself and you put that on the go corner. And then you shuffle up the community chess deck and the chance deck and you put them on their respective spaces on the board. You then get $1,500 cash in Monopoly money. And that's divided up a certain way. You get two $500 bills, four $100 bills, one $50 bill, two $20 bills, two $10 bills, five $1 bills, and one $5 bill. I kind of got myself mixed up, but I fixed it. Yay. So that total is $1,500. Now, as far as gameplay goes, first of all, I want to point out that Monopoly is essentially a trading game. You can trade anything in the game for anything else in the game. Money for property, property for money, get out of jail free cards for property or money, what have you. Property for property, doesn't matter. You could trade it for nothing if you wanted to, but I had no idea why you would want to trade something for nothing. But let it be known that's an option, I suppose. But also, you cannot give a player money. That's basically lending it. You can't lend money to a player in a game. Now, as far as gameplay actually goes, to move, you take the dice, you roll it, and then you move that many spaces. So if I roll two sixes, I move 12 spaces. Hey, I rolled a double. Because I rolled doubles, I can roll again. But if I were to roll doubles 3 times, I'd go to jail. So be careful about that. Now let's say the property that I landed on was unowned because it's the beginning of the game. Then I can either buy the property for the listed price from the bank, or if I'm feeling cheap, I can auction that property. Now, auctioning has an advantage because you could potentially buy a property for a hell of a lot cheaper than you would if you were to buy it. Auctions can start for as little as $1, and they could go up to whatever price you wanted. Typically, I always go for the list price. So if the property costs $100, I bet as little as $1, and if it hits 100, I'm not auctioning it anymore. But that's just me. So say you acquire the property through buying it or auctioning it, then you take the matching title deed for that property and you play it face up in front of you. Like, let's say this was the title deed, right? There's two sides to each title deed. There is the rent side, which shows you all the rent and all that stuff, and then there's the mortgage side. So let's say the property that you landed on, though, was owned by another player. Then you have to pay that player rent. And that depends on whether or not there's a building there, because buildings can modify the rent, but I'll explain that later. If you land on a community chess space or a chance space, then you draw the top card from that respective deck, resolve it, and then place it back on the bottom of that deck, unless it's a get out of jail free card, in which case you can keep that card. If you land on or pass the go space, then you collect $200. If you land on the tax space, you pay tax. If you land on the go to jail corner, then you go to jail, do not collect $200. To get out of jail, you have 4 options. One option is that on your next turn, you pay $50 to get out immediately. Your second option is that you try to roll doubles to get out. You only get 3 chances to do that. Your third option is, if option 2 fails, then pay $50 to get out. Your fourth option is, if you had to get out of jail free card, use it. Now, if you land in jail because of a die roll, say for instance, this is the jail corner right here, and where it has my face, this is the actual in jail space on that corner, right? So let's say I roll a 3, right? And I land in jail. Instead of placing my token in the actual jail space, I put him on the just visiting portion of that space. So I'm not in jail. But if you go to jail because a card tells you to, or because you land on the go to jail space, or because you roll doubles 3 times, you must put your token in the jail space. God, I look a hell of a lot younger back then. So, nothing happens on free parking, nothing happens on a property if you land on a property that you own, and nothing happens if the property is owned by another player, but it's mortgaged. Now, as far as properties go, there's 3 types of properties on the board, right? There's building sites, there's railroads, and then there's utilities. All 3 of them can be mortgaged, but the building sites are divided up into sets or colors. If you own a set, meaning that you own every single property of that color, then you could commence construction on that set. So starting with houses, you build one at a time, right? But you have to build them evenly. So let's say a set of property has 3 properties, right? You have to build one house on each property before you can build another house. If you have 4 houses on each property, then you can build a hotel. What these do is that the houses and the hotels is that they make the rent go up. And that's great news for you, but bad news for any player that might have landed on that property. Once a property has a hotel, no further modifications can be made on it. You cannot mortgage a property that has houses or hotels on it. You have to sell those first, and if you sell it back, they're for half the price that you got it for, but that goes on later. I'll explain that. Actually, it ties into what I'm about to say right now, paying a debt. So let's say I have to pay my cousin Jeremy over here, let's say $1,700. Well, I don't have that much on me cash, but what I can do is I can sell the properties or hotels for half the price that I got it for, and then I can mortgage those properties. How you mortgage a property is that you turn it face down so that the mortgage side is up. You collect whatever amount it says on the mortgage space. Now remember, you do not collect money for for mortgage properties. But let's say that I mortgaged all my properties, I sold all my buildings. Holy crap, what do? Well, I go bankrupt. Now let's say that the reason I went bankrupt is because I owe money to the bank. In that case, then I give up all my money to the bank, I give up all of my get out of jail free cards, and then I give up all my properties, and those properties then get auctioned off. I apologize. They get auctioned off, unmortgaged, to any players that want to buy them. But if my debt is to another player, then I give all the money that I have on hand to that player. Any get out of jail free cards that I happen to have to that player, and all of my properties mortgaged to that player. Now the player that acquired that property then has the option of unmortgaging the properties or not. Now how he unmortgages a property is that he pays the principal or the mortgage price, and then 10% of that. So if the mortgage price was $100, he pays $110. But let's say he doesn't want to unmortgage the properties now. He still has to pay the 10%. Furthermore, if he wants to unmortgage a property later, he has to pay the principal plus the 10%. So it's to your benefit to unmortgage a property if you can. If all other players have gone bankrupt, then the player left standing is the winner. And the game is over. After the game is over, burn the game. Throw it in the trash. Get rid of it. Go sit in the corner of your room and think about why you've spent 3 hours playing this godforsaken game. After you have contemplated that, right? After you've contemplated all of your life choices, go outside and buy a real game from a board game store that actually sells good games.